Why the Universe Says No to Love. Carl Jung, a name synonymous with the exploration of the human psyche, ventured far beyond the conventional boundaries of psychology. Unlike his contemporaries who focused primarily on observable behaviors and rational thought, Jung perceived the psyche as a vibrant, intricate entity, inextricably linked to the spiritual dimension of existence. He didn't dismiss spirituality as mere superstition or illusion. Instead, he recognized it as a fundamental expression of the human experience, deeply ingrained within the very structure of the unconscious mind. This essay delves into Jung's profound insights, particularly his understanding of synchronicity and its relevance to the often enigmatic phenomenon of denied love. We will explore how Jung's perspective reframes the experience of love thwarted, not as a random misfortune, but as a potentially transformative encounter with the deeper forces that shape our individual journeys. By weaving together Jungian concepts with personal reflections and original interpretations, we aim to illuminate the hidden meanings embedded within the seemingly inexplicable experiences of love lost or unfulfilled, offering a fresh perspective on navigating the complexities of the human heart. The psyche's hidden depths. Jung believed that life transcends a mere sequence of meaningless events. Rather, it is a process guided by forces that lie beyond the grasp of the ego's limited perception. What we often attribute to fate is, in many instances, the unfolding of deeply ingrained psychological patterns yearning for expression. From this perspective, the external world ceases to be a separate entity, transforming into a mirror that reflects the innermost movements of the soul. Imagine a still pond. Its surface reflects the surrounding trees, sky, and clouds. Similarly, Jung posited that our external world mirrors our internal landscape, revealing the often unconscious dynamics at play within our psyche. The key to understanding our experiences, especially those laden with emotional weight like a repeatedly blocked love, lies in deciphering the messages reflected in this mirror. Instead of viewing obstacles as random occurrences, we can begin to see them as potential revelations, albeit painful ones, that are essential to a larger, unfolding process. The enigma of denied love. There are moments in life when we encounter someone who feels undeniably significant. Every fiber of our being resonates with this person, as if we've known them for lifetimes. Yet, despite the intensity of this connection, an invisible barrier prevents its full realization. Obstacles arise, timing falters, distances grow, and an inexplicable force seems to push this love away again and again. These experiences can be profoundly disorienting, leaving us questioning the very nature of reality. We find ourselves caught in a paradox, a connection so powerful, yet so persistently denied. We yearn for answers, for explanations that can reconcile the intensity of the feeling with the impossibility of its fulfillment. Was it simply bad timing? A mistaken judgment? A karmic lesson to be learned? However, some endings defy such neat explanations, leaving behind a lingering sense of incompleteness, as if the story refuses to fully close. The past doesn't merely reside in memories. It permeates the present, manifesting in subtle yet persistent signs that seem to draw our attention back to what was lost. Synchronicity. The universe speaks in whispers. Jung coined the term synchronicity to describe the alignment of external events with internal realities in ways that are too precise to be dismissed as mere chance. These are not ordinary coincidences. They carry a weight, a timing, and a presence that demands recognition. Consider the experience of losing a love and then, unexpectedly, encountering reminders of that person or relationship in seemingly unrelated contexts. A name overheard in a conversation, a book appearing just when its message is most relevant, a place once shared suddenly becoming unavoidable. These occurrences don't force themselves upon our awareness, yet they refuse to be ignored. They create a sense that reality itself is responding, shaping events in ways that are both deeply personal and profoundly mysterious. At other times, the signals are even more pronounced. A dream that revives a forgotten detail, a sequence of repeated numbers appearing only when thoughts drift back to the past, a letter written but never sent resurfacing years later, as if the universe had held onto it for a specific purpose. These experiences challenge our logical understanding, yet they possess an uncanny precision that suggests a deeper force at work. Jung understood that the unconscious communicates in symbols, not words. Therefore, when something repeatedly appears in our lives, it's not a random occurrence. It's a message seeking acknowledgement. A love that was denied but refuses to fade may not be asking to be rekindled. Instead, it may be revealing something unfinished, something unseen that must be integrated before that chapter can truly close. Some individuals choose to ignore these signs, dismissing them as tricks of the mind. Others feel trapped by them, mistaking their presence as proof that the love must be revived. However, synchronicity is neither a promise nor a command. It doesn't dictate action, but rather demands awareness. The unconscious is constantly communicating with us, but few people truly listen, and even fewer understand that these signs are not about the other person. They're about what remains unresolved within ourselves. To dismiss synchronicity is to miss an opportunity for profound self-discovery. The psyche doesn't waste energy sending the same signals without a purpose. If certain images, memories, or events persistently resurface, they're not pulling us back toward the past. They're pushing us toward understanding. The meaning may not be immediately apparent, but it is never without significance. Ignoring these patterns doesn't erase them. In fact, the more they are resisted, the more insistently they appear. There are moments when life seems determined to make itself known, speaking through events rather than through explanations. The question is not whether these signs matter, but whether we are willing to recognize their presence. The self, beyond the ego's grasp. The presence of synchronicity in moments of loss suggests that a deeper force is at work. A love that vanishes yet continues to echo through our lives is not just a story of separation. It is a confrontation with the unseen forces that shape our personal growth. If these patterns are not random, then what is guiding them? Jung believed that beyond the fleeting desires of the ego, there exists the self, the core of the psyche, which guides events in a direction that the conscious mind may not yet comprehend. Not everything the heart desires is meant to be ours. The self does not operate according to longing, but according to wholeness. While the ego chases comfort, fulfillment, and certainty, the self is concerned with a greater path, one that often requires detours, obstacles, and even heartbreak. The experience of denied love is not simply about the loss of another person. It is about the misalignment between what is consciously wanted and what is unconsciously needed. Some loves arrive like revelations, reshaping everything they touch. They awaken something buried deep within us, stir emotions that were once dormant, and then, without warning, they dissolve. The loss feels unjust, as if something essential was taken away before it could fully unfold. However, the self does not take without purpose. When a love is denied despite its depth, it is often because it would lead us away from what is most necessary for our individuation, the process of becoming a whole and integrated individual. There is a part of the psyche that sees beyond temporary pain. The self does not reject love arbitrarily, it redirects. What feels like loss may, in fact, be protection. A love that seems to fit perfectly on the surface may, in unseen ways, pull the soul away from its true course. The conscious mind grasps for understanding, but the self speaks in a different language, not one of explanations, but of movement, shaping circumstances in ways that only later become clear. Resistance to this guidance is natural. The ego insists that what is wanted must be right. It fights against the barriers, convinced they must be overcome. However, when the same doors close repeatedly, when the same relationship cannot hold itself together despite every effort, there is a deeper will at play. The self does not need permission to intervene. It moves in alignment with something greater, even when that movement feels like loss. A love that is repeatedly denied is not just an external event. It is a reflection of the internal architecture of the psyche, the tension between longing and evolution. When the self says no, it is not cruelty. It is an act of direction, pushing the individual towards something the mind does not yet understand. The question is not whether the self is speaking. The question is whether we are willing to listen. Individuation, finding yourself in the emptiness. The absence of love often arrives quietly, yet shifts everything it touches. It leaves no room for preparation, no time for the mind to create defenses. One day, the love is present, filling the spaces of ordinary life with warmth. The next, it vanishes, leaving behind a quiet, persistent emptiness. Nothing seems changed externally, yet within, everything feels different, unfamiliar, incomplete. Jung named the process of moving toward this completeness individuation. Individuation doesn't begin when everything feels safe, comfortable, or perfectly aligned. It begins precisely at the point of absence, when a person must confront what remains once love has been stripped away. The self, in its quiet wisdom, allows this absence to occur, not as punishment, but as an invitation to grow beyond the comfort of the familiar. Initially, the absence feels impossible to accept. It creates a tension within, an urgent need to understand, to resolve, to regain what has disappeared. Memories resurface uninvited, each one amplifying the feeling of loss. Places that once brought joy now become reminders of something missing. Friends offer comfort, but their words cannot reach the deeper parts that remain unanswered, unresolved. Life moves on externally, but internally, something refuses to progress. Individuation thrives precisely in these spaces of internal pause. Where there was once connection, now there is solitude. And in that solitude, aspects of the self that were hidden by the relationship come forward. Fears that were once softened by love suddenly seem sharper. Patterns of behavior once excused by companionship now reveal themselves fully, demanding recognition and transformation. The person one became within that love begins to shed like an old skin, making way for something raw, uncertain, yet authentically alive. It would be easier, perhaps, to fill the silence immediately, to move quickly toward another love, another distraction, another way to soften the discomfort. However, individuation does not unfold in distraction. It unfolds through confronting the emptiness. It asks for patience and demands honesty. Each moment spent alone with the absence reveals another part of the self that had been overlooked, neglected, or forgotten. Slowly, what begins as a feeling of emptiness transforms into something else. It becomes clear that what felt like loss was, in fact, an invitation to reconnect with oneself in ways that were impossible within the comfort of love. Individuation is not the process of erasing love from memory, but the process of understanding who one is beyond it. Love denied is not merely something taken away. It is also a chance to reclaim a depth of self-knowledge that love alone could never fully offer. The path through absence requires a willingness to remain open, even when the instinct is to close. The loss of love is not easily accepted because it seems to carry with it an accusation that something within oneself was not enough. However, individuation shifts this perspective. Absence does not reflect inadequacy. Instead, it highlights aspects of the self that are calling for growth, attention, and recognition. It draws attention away from external validation toward internal truth. This does not erase the ache, nor does it promise immediate clarity. Instead, it offers meaning. It reshapes the way love itself is understood, not as a prize to be won or lost, but as a reflection of the self. In this reshaping, absence becomes a teacher. The solitude once resisted slowly becomes something necessary, valuable, even sacred. What begins as emptiness ends as insight. Individuation, in its silent way, transforms loss into understanding, absence into presence. Not the presence of another, but the presence of oneself, whole and complete, perhaps for the first time. Alchemy of the soul, transformation through loss. In the emptiness that follows lost love, something quietly begins to shift. What first felt like a painful void slowly reveals itself as a place of hidden potential. Jung saw this hidden potential clearly, describing it through the powerful image of alchemy, the ancient art of transformation. For Jung, love is not merely an emotional connection. It is a force capable of profound interchange. When love vanishes, the soul finds itself in the heat of an invisible fire, burning away what no longer serves its deeper purpose. Alchemy spoke of transformation through fire, a process of breaking down impurities to uncover something more precious. Similarly, the loss of love can feel like a fire ignited within, uncomfortable, consuming, and impossible to ignore. What it burns away is not simply memories or attachments, but layers of identity that once felt secure. Each moment spent longing or hurting reveals another layer ready to be surrendered. At first, the flames feel harsh, almost unbearable. Love that once brought comfort and security now delivers relentless discomfort. The desire to escape, to suppress this internal burning grows intense. Distraction becomes tempting. Relationships that once seemed unthinkable become opportunities for escape. Yet, like the alchemist's fire, these flames resist easy extinguishing. They persist precisely because they serve a deeper purpose, demanding acknowledgement instead of escape. What appears to be destruction slowly reveals itself as purification. Through loss, the soul confronts illusions it once held tightly. Beliefs about what love should look like, who one should become within relationships, and what happiness requires. These illusions crumble quietly, exposing truths the heart might have otherwise ignored. The emotional fire reveals hidden motives and buried wounds, bringing them to the surface not for punishment, but for healing. The process is delicate, slow, and often uncomfortable. Alchemists knew transformation required patience, attention, and courage. Likewise, navigating love's absence demands the courage to remain present with discomfort rather than flee from it. Pain becomes the instrument of awareness, exposing layers of the self that could not emerge in comfort. The fire's intensity clarifies priorities, showing what genuinely matters and what was merely superficial. Gradually, clarity begins to emerge from the flame. The soul recognizes aspects of itself, once hidden beneath dependency and desire. Qualities like strength, resilience, and authenticity appearing unexpectedly, born directly from the ashes of loss. The fire does not consume endlessly, it transforms. Eventually, the heart learns to embrace solitude without feeling diminished by it. Alchemy does not promise immediate relief or simple comfort. Instead, it teaches the value of staying present through uncertainty, of finding meaning within discomfort. The soul's transformation through loss becomes less about external love and more about discovering a deeper inner truth. Love, when lost, reveals itself as both a mirror and a catalyst, a force that reflects hidden parts of the psyche while simultaneously igniting the strength needed to face them directly. In this hidden alchemy, love's absence ceases to be merely loss. It becomes an invitation into a deeper relationship, not with another person, but with the parts of oneself that have waited patiently to be discovered. The fire of transformation does not pass without leaving its mark. Love's absence reshapes everything, turning familiar emotions into something unrecognizable. What was once warmth becomes emptiness. What once offered certainty now feels distant and untouchable. Suffering as a threshold, transcending the illusion of loss. But Jung understood that suffering was not simply pain to be endured. It was a force that could break illusions and open doors to something greater. Suffering, when faced without resistance, becomes a threshold for transcendence. Some wounds refuse to fade quickly. The world moves on, yet something inside remains stuck in the moment love was lost. The mind searches for meaning, trying to piece together a story that makes sense. But suffering resists explanation. It does not offer answers immediately. It lingers, demanding attention, insisting on being felt before it can transform into something else. Memories carry weight, dragging the past into the present in ways that feel impossible to control. A familiar scent, a passing phrase, the shape of a shadow at the wrong time of day. Each one is enough to reopen what was thought to be healing. But suffering is not the enemy. It does not arrive to punish or destroy. It arrives to reveal what still remains unresolved. There comes a moment when suffering no longer feels like something happening to the individual, but something happening within them. The pain shifts. It is no longer about another person, nor about what was lost. It becomes about the self, about the wounds that existed long before love arrived, about the fears that love once covered but never healed. Suffering forces confrontation with what was always there, waiting in the quiet spaces beneath distraction. Jung saw suffering as a natural part of transformation, not an obstacle to be avoided. It strips away false narratives, leaving only what is real. It does not erase love, nor does it demand forgetting. Instead, it asks for something deeper, a willingness to see what has been hidden beneath longing. The mind resists, seeking escape. But suffering, when truly faced, leads not to destruction, but to transcendence. There is a threshold between loss and understanding, a space where suffering stops being an enemy and becomes something else. It no longer holds power over the heart. It no longer defines the self. Instead, it reveals what remains once everything unnecessary has fallen away. Suffering does not vanish the moment its purpose is understood. It lingers, reshaping thoughts, pulling the heart toward places it had once ignored. What once seemed unfair begins to reveal its patterns, and with those patterns comes a realization. The soul's unseen direction. There is a force moving beneath life, shaping experiences in ways the conscious mind cannot predict. Jung saw this force as something beyond personal will. The soul has its own direction, and when it conflicts with the desires of the world, tension arises. There are moments when everything appears aligned for love, yet circumstances unravel without explanation. Two lives cross, something undeniable sparks between them, but instead of merging, they are pulled apart. The connection is real, but it does not unfold. The mind fights against this outcome, believing that if something is deeply felt, it must be pursued. But the soul does not move according to urgency. It follows a rhythm beyond what the ego can comprehend. A denied love is often mistaken for misfortune, but it may be an act of precision. Some relationships do not reach completion because they are not meant to. They are not failures. They are markers along the way, shaping the path without becoming the destination. The loss is not meaningless. It redirects, forces reflection, and leaves behind a question that cannot be answered with logic alone. Resistance arises when love is blocked. The more something is denied, the more the heart insists that it must be fought for. But the soul is not concerned with conquest. It does not measure love by possession. It is guided by something deeper, something that does not always align with the immediate desires of the world. The mind sees loss, the soul sees movement. What the world takes away is often what the soul does not need to keep. A love that fades despite every effort is not necessarily lost. It may have already fulfilled its purpose. The tension between what is wanted and what unfolds is not a mistake. It is the evidence of something greater at work, something that does not explain itself but asks to be trusted. The universe does not deny love without reason. What first appears as loss, rejection, or cruel misalignment often carries a meaning that only time reveals. Jung understood that life is not random. It moves in ways that align with deeper patterns, shaping each experience with a precision that the conscious mind struggles to perceive. When a love is repeatedly blocked, when no effort can hold it together, the answer is already given. It is not meant to remain. Some separations feel unnatural, as if something essential has been taken before it could fully unfold. The heart refuses to accept it, convinced that love, when real, must persist. The purpose of departure, awakening the self. But what if the universe's refusal is not a punishment, but a correction? What if it is not an ending, but a redirection towards something unseen? The mind resists, searching for alternative explanations, yet the self moves with clarity. It does not take what is necessary. It only removes what no longer serves the path forward. There's a moment when the struggle dissolves, not because the longing disappears, but because it no longer defines the self. The person left behind, the love that never fully formed, the moments that felt like destiny but never reached completion, they no longer hold the same weight. What once felt like absence begins to take shape as something else, something unexpected. The loss does not vanish, but its purpose starts to unfold. A love denied is never just about the other person. It is an encounter with something greater. The movement of the psyche, the precision of the unconscious, the quiet guidance of something beyond the personal will. Love, when truly meant to remain, does not need to be forced. It aligns. And when it does not, it teaches. The universe does not waste energy removing what is essential. It does not take without purpose. If a love is denied, it is because it belongs to the past, not to the future. The lesson is not in reclaiming what was lost, but in understanding what was revealed in its departure. Not all loves are meant to stay. Some exist only to awaken what has long been waiting to be seen. Conclusion. In conclusion, Jung's perspective on the human psyche provides a powerful framework for understanding the complexities of love, loss, and the search for meaning. By recognizing the role of synchronicity and the guiding influence of the self, we can begin to see denied love not as a random misfortune, but as a potentially transformative experience that can lead to profound self-discovery and individuation. It requires us to move beyond the limitations of the ego and embrace the wisdom of the unconscious, trusting that even in moments of profound loss, there's a deeper purpose at work, guiding us toward wholeness and a more authentic understanding of ourselves.